Hi, welcome to the Talking Book Talk series. Today we have with us Suzanne Walker from the Young Readers Center. We are going to be focusing for the next couple of months about Indiana authors. These will be online whenever you want to go back and look at them. We are going to go ahead and get started with the season of Styx Malone by Kekla Magoon.
I think it's Kekla.
Kekla.
Yep. Here's the book.
We want to say her name right.
Yep.
But we are going to go in and Suzanne's going to talk a little bit about what what her department does and what they kind of focus on. Let me go and hit next. There we go. Oh, too far. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Hey everyone, thanks Abby so much for having me today. So I'm the children's librarian in the Indiana Young Readers Center. The Indiana Young Readers Center is part of the state library, and we focus on authors from Indiana that write for kids and young adults. We opened in 2016 for the bicentennial, and it's a great place to come and visit. We get a lot of field trips. We also do story times with the daycare that's here on the state government campus. So it's fun. We're really busy. We also do a couple other statewide programs, and I'm just real excited to be here with Abby today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that Suzanne got to join us today, and we get to talk about a really cool book today that she actually is the one that chose it. So it's pretty great.
It's a great one.
I'm also going to remind everybody that summer reading this year is happening May 30th to August 4th. If you are a patron of Talking Books from ages 4 to 18, our theme is All Together Now, which is about friendship and kindness and unity. And you'll be mailed packets throughout summer reading, and you'll also get prizes at the end of summer reading. So if you would like to sign up, you can call me, you can email me. On our website, we have the application that you can fill out and email me as well. So it's a pretty easy process, a fun way to read and get prizes over the summer. All right, and then we are going into talking about the season of Styx Malone. You said it was Kekla.
It is Kekla.
Yeah. Kekla. Okay.
And I'll just mention that the cover that you see on your screen is the paperback cover, and we actually have the hardcover. I'm not sure if we're going to show up in the video, but I'm holding it up in case.
Yes.
And it's a perfect book for this theme.
Yeah, it's a great summer read. It was a really good book. It was a great summer read. So we're going to talk a little bit about the author. And so the author wrote her own biography. So I went ahead and pulled it off of her website. And so it says, most people prefer to begin their bios at the beginning, but Kekla has never been like most people. Besides, what she is doing now is much more interesting than what she was doing as an infant. Today, Kekla lives and writes in Vermont. She is a full-time author, speaker, and writing teacher. She travels to schools and libraries around the country. She teaches at Vermont College of Fine Arts, where she mentors other writers who also want to create books for the younger readers. Prior to Vermont, Kekla lived in New York City. Before she became a professional writer, she worked for nonprofit organizations around the city. She was a recruiter for the Girl Scouts, a grant writer for the Salvation Army, and a fundraising coordinator for the Brotherhood/Sister Soul, a grassroots youth empowerment agency in Harlem. Kekla earned a Master of Fine Arts in Writing from Vermont College of Fine Arts. Even though writing is very hard work, especially when you have another full-time job to do, Kekla loved every minute of the program because she finally figured out what she wanted to do with her life. It also gave her a chance to connect with the community of fellow writers, people who are huge book dorks like she is, who care about storytelling and kids and reading as much as she does, and who completely understand why sometimes you just have to whip out a pen on the subway and start writing a story on the backs of your Trader Joe's receipts, even if it makes bystanders regard you as weird. It is a relief to have people like this in your life.
How great. Kekla graduated from Northwestern University, where she majored in history with a concentration in the history of Africa and the Middle East. And now, of course, this is my favorite part about Kekla's bio. Kekla grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She wrote her first novel when she was in high school. Amazing. Kekla always loved books, though. Her mom read lots of books to her and took her to the library every week so she could read. Kekla made a habit of checking out as many paperbacks as she could carry. Kekla is biracial. Her mama is white and her dad is Black. Her mom grew up in the US, but her ancestors came from Holland, Scotland, and maybe elsewhere in Europe. Her dad grew up in Cameroon, a country in Western Africa. When Kekla was very young, she lived with her parents in Cameroon for several years. Kekla was born in Michigan. She learned to read at the age of 2.
So fun. And Fort Wayne is such a nice little city.
Absolutely.
All right, here is a warning. There is a spoiler warning. If you have not read the book, pause this video, go and read it, and then come back.
It'll be a great read. You'll love it. We'll see you when you're done.
Right, because we will be spoiling a few little parts of the book, and we don't want to ruin the book for you because it is a very good read. And there are some surprising things. So we don't want to spoil that for you.
Happy reading.
So with that said, we're going to go on to the questions. So once again, pause if you haven't read. All right, discussion questions. Extraordinary is a funny word. It takes 2 words, extra and ordinary, and puts them together to mean something completely different. When Caleb's dad, who really values ordinary people, tells Caleb that he is extraordinary, Caleb misunderstands the word and thinks his dad is saying that he is super boring, which his dad likes. Right. What do you think the word extraordinary means? Would you rather be ordinary or extraordinary? It's a good question.
So I do know that the word extraordinary means you're extremely special or that something was really amazing. So extraordinary is a positive word.
Yeah.
It means something's really great and wonderful. And I think that Caleb hears his dad say ordinary all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I think his dad pronounces extraordinary as extraordinary,
which is like, you are super normal,
right? And super boring.
And it's like, no little kid wants to be that.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Have you ever known anyone that's just like, I want to be ordinary? Well, I mean, actually, yes.
I mean, maybe me a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to be extraordinary at like maybe a few things, but I can't be great at everything. I know that as an adult, like I'll try to be really good at my job, but when I come home, I'm just going to be normal Abby that likes to hang out with her cats and garden.
Absolutely. And I know lots of kids that want to fit in with their peer group. And so they want to be ordinary in that way. But it is nice to have an aspect of your life where you feel like you're extraordinary at it.
At least one
thing. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think it would be really tiring to be extraordinary all the time.
Yeah, it would be exhausting.
Like Taylor Swift has got to be exhausted,
yeah.
Right?
With her current tour.
Exactly. That said, I'm sure that there are times of her life where, she's probably quite happy to be Taylor Swift. I don't know how I'm getting on this rant, but anyway, but then there's probably other days where she just wants to have an ordinary life. So
I absolutely understand.
I think it's a balance.
Yeah, it's a nice balance. So.
Okay, here's another one. There's a lot in this book about trading. First, Caleb and Bobby Jean trade their sister for some fireworks. Then Styx gets them to trade one thing for another until they get up to a moped. Have you ever traded anything? Did you get a fair deal? Did the other person? Was all the trading they did okay? Abby, I'm going to ask you, do you think it was fair that Caleb and Bobby Jean traded their sister for the fireworks?
Trading a human being for anything, no, but it was so funny the way it happened because they didn't intend for that. She had soiled her diaper, I believe, and Bobby Jean was like, ugh, gross, and lifted her because he wanted to get her away from him. And the kid was like, yep, I'll take that baby. And it's like, they didn't intend to. I laughed out loud at that part.
And what was the name of that friend?
Oh, shoot. I should remember.
I feel like it started with a C. I'm looking in the book.
That was a J.
Oh, no. Let's see here.
But yeah, then they had to go over and do chores.
They did. Isn't it Corey?
Oh, Corey. Okay.
Corey. It was a C. Okay, so Corey got the baby, and I feel like Corey's gonna grow up to be a baby nurse.
Yeah, he just loves babies.
Corey
which
loves
is so
babies.
Cute and endearing, but also like you can't trade a baby for fire.
No, you can't. You can't. And I also thought it was kind of not cool that Caleb and Bobby Jean kept the fireworks, although they did eventually pay Corey for them.
They did.
So then that was kind of okay.
So it was a little kind of unfair, but eventually it all turned out okay and they were happy.
Have you ever traded anything?
Other than maybe trading clothes with my sister, but really my sister more stealing my clothes because they fit her better. So no, not really.
Got it. So I also grew up with sisters, and I was a wheeler and a dealer when I was a kid, probably unfairly. And I definitely traded chores and money for my little sister to help me get my first American Girl doll, with the understanding that when it was her time to then get her doll, I would also help her. And she has never let me live down the fact that I just didn't really help her as much as she helped me.
Right.
So sorry, Jenny, I owe you probably $80
for the American Girl doll.
Exactly.
Next question is, have you ever had a friend that you admired and looked up to? Did you believe that Styx could do everything that he promised?
When I was a kid, there was this girl that went to my dance studio. I took tap dance, and she was a great dancer, and she just had this infectious personality, and I wanted to be just like her. So much so, she had like kind of a unique haircut. She had almost like a chili bowl haircut. It was just really short and kind of blunt right here. And I made my mom.
You're like, I
want that haircut. You know, I want that haircut just like Jenny, you know.
Absolutely.
And I did get that, and it didn't, you know, make me a better dancer.
Right.
Or anything.
You just had a cool haircut.
Exactly. What about you?
I'm sure in middle school, you know, I was a theater kid. So when you look up
same.
and the high school kids were putting on these amazing musicals, and you're like, I want to be that person. But, you know, I was really shy. So I wasn't like super friends with any of them, but I knew all of them. And I was like, one day, which it did work out, but one day I'm gonna be that. So.
Yes, absolutely. Did you think that Styx could do everything he promised?
I was really kind of reticent about them being able to get a moped from what I was like, there's no way it's gonna end in tears. They're gonna be upset. Summer's gonna suck for them. But I mean, he pulled through. I was really impressed.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot about listening in this book and trying to find the exact right trade. Actually, I took a philanthropy class in college, and there's a lot in this book that's like, if you want something, you have to listen to make sure that you're asking the right people, and like it's like matching, right? So when they did their final trade, which maybe we won't say exactly what that was, but they had, you know, a set of items that was exactly perfect
for the people,
for the guy that owned the moped, you know, and, you know, they had to talk him into it a little bit, but as soon as they did, he was like, actually, this is perfect.
Like, this is a good idea,
you know, because it helped him in his personal life too. So that was pretty cool. I forget where we're at. Is this me or you?
It's your turn.
Okay. So Abby, why do you think that Caleb and Bobby Jean's parents don't want their children to associate with Styx? And do you think they were being fair?
This was a hard one. I thought about this quite a bit actually this morning. I think they don't want them to associate with Styx because, you know, he's alternative. He's different from what they're used to. It might not be completely fair because the parents aren't giving, you know, everybody the benefit of the doubt, but they kind of see him like, oh, you know, he's freewheeling, he's a smooth talker, but you know, he's not from a typical home, and we're a small town country, and we want to be safe. We don't want to like expose our boys to something different, but you know, the boys really accepted him and were really good friends with him. And it's kind of hard to like, you know, take your kids away from that. But I don't know, as I'm not a parent, so I don't know about all of it, but
yeah, I'm a step parent. And one of the things that really, I don't know, resonated with me, it was interesting that the father, Caleb and Bobby Jean's dad, was, I think you could say he was overprotective, but as a Black family living, you know, in Indiana, living anywhere really, he feels like they have to be extremely careful.
Right.
And that was kind of a heavier topic in the book.
Yeah.
And they didn't go into that a whole lot, but they did talk about how the dad was very protective of his children. And, you know, as a step parent or any parent is going to be protective of your children. But he was so to the point where it made Caleb feel like he wasn't allowed to do anything.
He was being smothered.
Yeah. And he wasn't allowed, you know, the boundaries, the physical boundaries around their house were very cut and dried, except for the woods. Like they
Yeah.
could go in the woods and maybe they could get a little further, but they weren't allowed to walk lots of places. When I was a kid, Abby, in the 80s and, mostly in the 80s, we like went everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I lived in a small town, just
Yeah.
kind of like they like Caleb and Bobby Jean did, and we would bike 7 miles across town.
Exactly.
And there was no question.
Exactly. So, when we had the child, what is it called? Our child life.
Yeah, our childhood.
I couldn't think of the word childhood. When we have childhoods like you and I have, the way that Caleb and Bobby Jean were being raised really did seem kind of limited, so I do think that they didn't want their kids to associate with Styx because Styx wasn't respecting the boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but as to whether or not they were being fair, I don't know.
It's hard. It's a lot to get into.
It's hard. And I think that Caleb and Bobby Jean definitely didn't handle it right.
No.
I mean, they did some pretty dangerous
sneaky
stuff too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
They did something that was kind of very risky and they could have easily died.
So extremely hurt. Yeah.
That made me nervous. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, and then they told their parents and they didn't even believe them.
And yeah, they're like, well, clearly, like, whose car did you use? And they're like, well, we didn't. And it's like,
yeah. So
they
we'll try
didn't
not to
lie,
spoil that
but-
either, but
Ooh.
there's a very risky thing that they do in the book.
Yeah.
So.
The next question is, how did you feel when you learned that Caleb and Bobby Jean's father reported Styx to the child services? Why do you think he did it?
Yes. Well, in Indiana, we actually have a law
Mhm.
that says if you know that a child is in danger, you have to report it. So I actually think that it was probably right that the father reported Styx to children's services, because I think this is after they did that really risky thing.
Mhm.
And it was also after there was some dishonesty that came forth because another adult came to their dad and was like, I have to tell you about this thing that's happening. And so I think, I mean, I was surprised that it happened, but I think he did it because he was trying to protect his own kids and to even help Styx out.
Right.
Which
it did work out in the end. It was good that, they got involved a little bit, but yeah, it was kind of like, oh no, they've been reported. That's sad. But like, yeah, I understand 100% as a father, he feels like he's protecting his kids.
And I think they did a good job Kekla did a good job. Kekla. I think Kekla did a good job of kind of having a balance between having child protective services seen as like the villain in the story,
like the man or whatever,
versus the savior, because I think the reality is that kids that are, in dire situations, they need these services, and it's important that we have people that are looking out for kids.
Absolutely.
I like the part where Caleb and Bobby Jean's mom is like, oh, they got their wires crossed. Let me make some phone calls. And she's able to get it sorted out. And I think that also speaks to the fact that Child Protective Services is probably underfunded.
Absolutely. They don't have enough staff.
Like they need more resources. So, I mean, it is, I think from a kid's point of view, they want that freedom, they want that independence, but Styx is only 16.
Yeah, he's still a baby in standards of.
Yeah, and not making the best decisions, really.
Right. Yeah.
All over the place. Although, what a great summer they had.
Yeah, they did have very memorable.
Absolutely. Okay, families are all different. Caleb and Bobby Jean live with their birth parents and their little sister, Susie. From Styx, they learn that not all families are like theirs. Can you think of different kinds of families that you know? What do you think makes a family?
It's a good question. I feel like I know the gamut of families. I grew up in a nuclear family is what you call it. I have my original mother and father and my sister.
I like that you call them your original.
Yeah, my original ones. Some
OG.
people have some new ones. They have maybe parents that divorced. I don't think I knew anybody that was in foster care when I was a kid. But really what makes a family or a found family or, a blended family is, who you love and who you trust, really, I think. And, sometimes you might not feel like what they're making you do is fair,
Right.
or that they're being a parent and not letting you do things, but like you trust them and you love them in the long run.
Absolutely. I know all kinds of different families. My parents got divorced when I was a kid, and I'm currently, like I said, a stepmom. And so my stepchildren actually have 4 parental units.
That's amazing.
Which is kind of a lot. And but it's kind of great in a way, because there's always somebody available to like support the kids when they need it, which is really good. So I mean, like, families look differently to every family is different.
Mhm.
And I think it's so important to value the definition of a family that a family creates,
Right.
like maybe a family is 2 dads, maybe a family is like, an uncle that's raising, nieces and nephews. It can look, and maybe families include foster children, it includes all kinds of different people. I feel like I was going to say something else and then it just flew away. Well, I guess another thing is like some people, their family include animals, like,
yeah, ours absolutely does.
Yeah. My sister has 2 dogs and they're like her children. And that's, that's what her family looks like.
So it's whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I think I'll go back and I'll be listening to what I said and I'll be like, oh yeah.
And I forgot about this too.
Sorry. Well, hopefully you'll have me back another time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I'll talk about that here in a second.
Great.
So we're providing our thoughts. We did get to discuss this a little bit more, but just overall, like 2 thumbs up. We would recommend it.
Absolutely.
It's a great read, especially that they're in Indiana. So if you live in Indiana, which of course you most likely do, you can see yourself in this book. You might not see yourself in every part of every character, but everybody has a little bit of either like Caleb or Bobby Jean or even Styx. And also living in Indiana kind of brings it all back home.
They talk about, I don't think it's a spoiler to say they talk about the Children's Museum a lot.
Very heavily. And I'm like, I've been there. Like we used to go there all the time as a kid.
And they mention our sports teams. They mention the Pacers and the Colts. I thought it was great that Caleb's dad mentions the Cubs.
Yeah.
Because even though they're an Illinois team, like obviously
it's close enough.
People here.
People enjoy
our
that.
Cubs fans. Yeah. Exactly. And then there's a couple other places that they talk about in the book. I do think it's a lovely book. It's perfect for the summer altogether now. I think that, it's such a perfect story for that because it's the friendship that the boys create over the summer is so powerful. And I think that's why in the end feelings get hurt so deeply because everybody cares.
They
so
really
much.
do love each other. And it's nice to see 3 boys being such good friends like that.
And I also really enjoyed reading about their family. Because the mom and the dad, while the father in particular is pretty overprotective, they're very open about talking about how they love their children. Oh, I remember what I was going to say now.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, about parents. It was about how you were mentioning how sometimes kids might not love the fact that their parents have to be parents. I hear frequently at my house, like, well, it's our job as parents to do these things.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes what kids don't appreciate is that like sometimes parents have to make decisions that are even hard for the parents. Right. Like, I'm sorry you can't go to that sleepover because I know you're suffering with, chickenpox or whatever.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You have to stay home.
No,
I wish you could go and have
unfair.
fun. Well, sorry, you've been exposed or whatever. Like, we can't let you do that. So sometimes parents do have to make those hard decisions, but if you're doing your parental job, it's for the sake of the kids eventually. Right. So final thoughts, I guess I would just say, it was really fun to read about Indiana. It was fun to read about the family. There's lots, it's a little bit of a roller coaster of a ride, it is. And especially the ending when, sort of disasters.
Yeah, things come out of nowhere and you're like, oh no, like
literally, figuratively.
Tekla knows how to write. She does very good.
And she's written lots of other books. So if you like Styx Malone, there's lots of other books by Tekla that you could also get into.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is season of Styx Malone. We will be meeting again in July, and I will be with Suzanne again. We're going to talk about different Indiana authors that do children's books or YA or kind of in that vein. Do you have anything else to add before we conclude?
I don't think so. Thanks so much for having me. I
Yeah.
hope it was enjoyable to your listeners, and I'm looking forward to talking more in July about Indiana authors.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. So that concludes today's book talk. We will see you again in July.